Ready? Here we are. Hello, Cynthia Allen.
Hey,
Welcome.
it's good to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I'm so thankful that you could come on to my podcast, Awareness in Motion. I'll bring up my intro. So, Cynthia, you've been working in holistic practices, healthcare management, and organization consulting for over 35 years. In 2001, you became a certified Feldenkrais practitioner and more recently, a senior trainer in movement intelligence. By day, Cynthia helps children and adults find easier ways to navigate life challenges and thrive. By night, she is dreaming new options for how people can become more fully human through awareness, curiosity, intelligence, and action. So thanks for joining this conversation today. And the theme, aging gracefully with Feldenkrais. Would you like to start us off?
Yeah. So, I asked you what you would like the topic to be, and you said this, and I went, in my head, I didn't tell you this, but in my head, I went, not really my topic. And so it's kind of funny, because then I thought, is it really not my topic? Because I had a whole track on it, right, in the last summit. You saw
Yeah.
that. So there were 3 speakers, and we did a panel discussion. But it's interesting to watch my own response to it. And I thought maybe it would be helpful just to understand these terms, aging and gracefully. So I went and looked up aging, and here's the definition of it: the process of becoming older. That's the definition of aging. So, okay, that starts as soon as we're born. I mean, probably starts in the womb, but it starts as soon as we're born. So then I'm curious, like, when is it that we start to think about aging in the way that we do culturally? And it seems like we mark 30 as a big transition point for many people, and we have some sense that something is starting to change in their lives. And then we talk about the big 4-0, right? The big 4-0. And so, with the current lifespan, that's still like half of a person's lifespan. And we are already marking them somehow as in some place, and we call it being over the hill. So it's a fascinating idea to me. That has some bearing in reality. Like, it does seem true, like just biologically, that up until around age 30, we're garnishing our physical power up until around that age. And we, even if we're not somebody who's particularly athletic, like myself, was never athletic, not even close to athletic, I still garnished my power, and I did it by working really long, hard hours. So we have a sense of establishing ourselves in the world up until then, and sort of taking the world, making our mark, making our place in the world, making some kind of sense of ourselves in relationship to the world that says, hey, I'm here and I can do this, right? And then something does change, and we go into kind of almost a kind of in-between zone. And this in-between zone, in the 40s and the 50s, we often talk about midlife crisis, and we use that term for men, but I think it totally applies to women as well, just to maybe expresses itself a bit differently. And so something starts to change in how we recognize, physically something is different for us. What we want out of our lives maybe isn't what we thought it was, right?
Yeah.
And then we mark something else, I think, when we start into the 60s and the 70s. And then we start talking about decline a lot of times. And I'm curious about that as well. So we have this whole thing of aging to think about what would be a maybe a better definition of it. And I was thinking maybe it's about the lack of curiosity. A lack of curiosity about what's possible might define aging. A lack of curiosity about what's possible, or stiffness in belief and my body, like just a stiffening kind of quality. Yeah. And that, of course, could be at any age then. And I think that's why we sometimes hear people say when they take Feldenkrais, regardless of their age, just about, I wish I'd have started doing this 10 years earlier. Right? They feel some kind of softening or mobility, movement, some kind of expansion, some kind of lightness that they identify as often feeling younger or more vital. Younger, more vital.
The audience, what do you get when you're participating in Feldenkrais? If you have, some of the audience may not have tried Feldenkrais, but share with us what your experience is that Cynthia's talking about. We've got Brett here that has said he started thinking 40 was about the halfway mark. And Sue here has said she's loving her 60s. So
great. I'm glad to hear she's loving her 60s. And then there's this other word that you used in the title, which is gracefully. Yes. Yeah. So I wanted to look that up then and see sort of like what was the definition of that. And there's a number of definitions. And I think the one that maybe, somebody sort of commented on in one of the groups that might be a bit problematic is the one that's a pleasing appearance or effect, charm. And we often think about charm school for women, but there is a definition which is just ease and suppleness of movement or bearing. And I think that we don't hear the word graceful a lot for men, but we do hear it more for women. And I think isn't that what one of your comments was? How does she say it? She was
saying that why is it always women who are asked about aging gracefully or the aging process rather than men? So I thought that was quite interesting.
I think it is too, and I wondered why we don't say aging with power. Why do we say aging with power? What makes us not go there? And maybe it's because there is a difference in the power as we age. I mean, there is a reality that things are changing physically. We could say that's a decline, and in some ways it is a decline. It's definitely a change for sure. And then there's other ways in which we're actually becoming usually more clearer. We have a different stability in our emotional sense and self. Oftentimes we're able to navigate the changes of life differently. It's not that loss gets easier exactly, but in some ways it does, because you learn that you can recover even from loss, from other people's illnesses, deaths, or even loss of some part of function in your life where people have some kind of accident and things are really different for them. So it's interesting. I have a class that I have been teaching for a few years for people that I used to call for 65 plus. And I've called it posture, power, and balance is what I've called it over the years. And it's certainly not about weight training, but it is about a kind of, quality of strengthening as well. So I think it's definitely something to ponder for us. I see Kathy over here says health crises have tended to exert a shift in mindset and many times feeling closer to less time here. Yeah. So we are more aware of mortality for sure. I'm definitely more aware that there isn't an unlimited number of years left in my life, right? So that I think I prioritize a little bit differently and start to think about what is it that I want to be able to do with my remaining years in a way that's different than when I was in my 40s, for sure.
Yeah. The reason I want to talk about it, and I have shared some people that know me here that I had a neck pain, and I knew it wasn't musculature. So I've gone and got an MRI, and it comes out that I've got some mild degeneration in my neck. And for me, as a dancer, very active person, I was like, I never thought I'd be in this place. So my sense of myself and there are things that are going to come up for me. So hence I wanted to chat about that.
Yeah, it just turns out, Angela, that it doesn't matter how great of an athlete you are. And I think it's a big shock to people. I remember some years ago, a practitioner came to see me that had been in my training, and she was a very athletic person, and she had some significant back pain. And she said, I've never really had any major pain before in my life. And this was for her a major identity crisis for her. And where I was someone who had a lot of pain and difficulty early in life. So, that a bigger identity crisis for me was when I didn't feel pain all the time, actually. It's interesting how, these experiences surprise us, right? You got surprised by this neck situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we often think, a lot of us often think that, hey, athletic people, Tiger Woods, we watched his golf game, and then I would say a lot of us were shocked, right? At, oh my gosh, he had a knee replacement. What? He's had these 4 spine surgeries. What? This beautiful looking athlete that we were just so enamored with his movement. Or for you, who was doing break dancing and feeling great about so many things that you could do as a dancer, as an artist, to find out, hey, I've got some actual degeneration in my neck. So
now it's actually moved. I've got it down further in my ribs now. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, and that's actually just normal. That's just normal for all of us. It does happen that as we get older, there is more clarity about the wear and tear we have put on our body than there was when we were younger. So I think this is just an actual accumulation of the repetitive use of ourselves.
Yeah.
So for me, I talk a lot about.
I was going to say, Caroline, a lot of people come to Feldenkrais through discomfort, pain. Caroline's highlighting that fact there with neck and shoulder pain started her journey around 40 years ago.
Right. And actually, I would probably say, Carolyn, that was my beginning of my journey into it as well. And so I talk a lot about how do we take ourselves from a wear and tear to a wear and repair system. So we are meant to have actual wear on our system. We're actually meant to have wear on our muscles. We're meant to have wear in our bones, in our cells. And if the wear is distributed well through the whole system, it turns around and repairs itself, and it repairs itself stronger than it was before. But when we do not have it well distributed through the whole system, and then one area is kind of getting sort of so something in your neck, right, going you end up with a little bit more of a wear and tear system. And so I think one of the things that Feldenkrais is good at is helping us refine at a really deep level, quality of movement. But it doesn't take away all of our bad habits. We're human. We're human. We're organic. We're going to have these things come up. And what's amazing is the studies show, Angela, that for you with your neck issues and me with my neck issues, you can have a lot of stuff show up on MRI, and you can still learn to do great with it. So Feldenkrais can be a part of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Alicia Brown has commented here that she just broke her shoulder and got diagnosed with osteoporosis at 48. very low bone density for a woman of her age. Definitely time to make some changes.
Yeah. So that's like a big wake-up call. We get these moments where we have wake-up calls, and we need to think about how do we want to go forward with our life. And wake-up calls can be all kinds of things, like not having a job any longer, or somebody in our family saying, like, I can't live with you like this, or something in your body says, hey, look, we can't make it like this. If you're going to keep doing like this, we're not going to have the bone density that we need to be able to be upright and live out our days with our most possibility.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that was the next question I was going to ask, and you started covering it. Does aging mean wear and tear on our body?
Yeah.
Next,
can I say something a little bit more about that? So, yeah, I think also it's really I remember some years ago, somebody came to my class, to one of my Bones for Life trainings, actually. His name was John, and he was a professor out of Chicago, and he'd been struggling with back pain for many, many years. And so he came, and he was probably on like day 2 or 3 of the intensive workshop. And he said, hey, is this one and done? And I said, oh, this is a great question, right? Because he was feeling so much better. And what he wanted to know was, do I have to keep doing this? Am I now cured, right? Am I now cured? Do I have to keep doing this? And, I think that a lot of times in people's minds, we think about something like Feldenkrais as a very episodic part of our lives. And it can be, that can work for an episodic result, right? To get you out of like a little stuck place. But I think it's much more of what I would call a hygienic approach, like brushing your teeth, like washing your clothes, like taking a shower, like getting out and making sure you get in a certain number of steps or you get your heart rate up. I think the Feldenkrais work is much more of a hygienic approach. So that when you keep it with you through the course of your life, you have a much better opportunity to do this thing called aging gracefully, or with power.
If only we could add it to our Apple Watches, count the steps, count the awareness in our movement. That would. It's interesting that people think, is that it? Actually, I'm not sure if you caught the interview with Larry, but he talked about a little bit about how to make it, what happens when that habit does come back, that, I've changed, I feel great. Oh, hang on a minute, it's back again. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that too.
I did hear part of Larry's interview, and I thought he did a great job with it. We have to have habits. There's nothing, we use the word habit sometimes in the Feldenkrais work as if it's a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing, of course. We absolutely, habits are necessary for functioning. But there is, to be able to have options is extremely important. And if we get back to that idea of what might be aging gracefully, I said that I thought if we looked at aging, maybe aging is the lack of curiosity about what's possible. And I think that's where we have to watch ourselves, is that when we find ourselves thinking, oh no, there I am in pain again, this means it's all downhill from here. Or, oh no, I tripped, I fell, it's all downhill from now. Oh no, I have a bad test result, I've got osteoporosis, or I've got stenosis in the spine, or I've got osteoarthritis, or whatever, it's all down here from now. We have to really watch our thinking around these kinds of things, because yes, as I said before, life does change. We say that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, while she lived to be, I think, 88, and we believe for all we could see, her mind was pretty darn sharp until the end, probably sharper than mine has ever been. She did look physically different at that age than she looked 30 years younger. She did
Yeah.
look still gorgeous, in my opinion, but she had some postural changes, and she was still working out and doing what she could do. So I think that around habits, one of the most important habits is to notice is our thinking about things that come up that we judge as less than ideal, right? And then as Kathy says, catastrophizing it.
Yeah. That's actually in my notes here, and one of Moshe's quotes is, "We act in accordance with our self-image." So,
And it's amazing how quickly something like a test result can become part of our self-image. Extremely quickly it becomes part of our self-image. Like, I'm a person with stenosis. Oh my gosh, I'm a person that has a narrowing the spinal that's affecting the spinal cord. Oh my gosh, I'm a person who has this nerve bone spur down here. Oh my gosh, and it's very quick to become part of our self-image in a way that I don't think is usually helpful.
No.
So that's another kind of stiffness in thinking, right? A lack of curiosity. So when John said, is it one and done? I mean, I said back then, well, I only know of one thing that's one and done, right? And it's not actually taxes and death. It's actually trauma. Trauma is a one and done event. You can have trauma in a matter of seconds. You can even have trauma from somebody telling you about their trauma. But everything else is something that usually takes a process of continual re-engagement. It takes a process of continually re-engaging. So to claim the positivity in life, the positive potential in life, is a process of continual re-engagement, a continual saying what might be possible. Yeah, so I'm 62. What might be possible? So yeah, I got stenosis in my neck. I got some bulging discs, right? I got this, but okay, so what might be possible? And I think the Feldenkrais work allows us to ask that to ourselves again, like almost every great lesson we've ever had, right? I think I've gotten up feeling like, oh, okay, like, what is this world, right, that I'm inhabiting right now? Of myself, right? That I'm inhabiting in myself. What is this?
Yeah, brilliant. And as is mentioned here, it's a decision whether you want to age or to continue to grow.
So from Arafili, reminds me, her decision about it's whether it's a decision whether you want to age or continue to grow. I think that is a great distinction. And I'm going to add that the kind of growth people start to seek, particularly in their 80s and 90s, is really different. And it's usually a kind of growth around mortality and the acceptance of mortality. So we have to be careful how we define growth through all of these stages. Or if somebody has a terminal illness of some type, they can be hoping and planning for their continuance of life while they're also really trying to deal with the fact that it's quite possible that their life's going to be much shorter than they thought it was going to be. And this is probably going to be now their bigger growth edge, is how to deal with that. So it is still growth. And I think it's really important for us to claim that kind of growth as extremely important. But it does change. And I think it's important for us to recognize that it does change and not just put a totally, oh, you're going to have this Pollyanna body that you had 10 years or 15 years ago. No, you're going to have a body appropriate for what you're doing in your life right now.
Yeah.
And the possibilities that are there for what you do in your life right now.
So we have a direct question here from Nikki, who's asking, what is possible with carpal tunnel?
Well, hey,
which
Nikki, I know Nikki very well. Nikki, I wish we were on retreat together. Nikki has gone on some of our annual retreats with us to travel around the world. I wish we could do that right now. Yeah, carpal tunnel, it depends on how advanced along it is, but definitely Feldenkrais work can be valuable for carpal tunnel, and organizing so that your use of your arm, your hand comes from the pelvis, comes from the feet, is not limited to below your elbow, helping you to feel the habit you have of how you hold your arm in space as you maybe say do the keyboard, or in your case, Nikki, maybe as you do your artwork. That these ways of using our cells, it can be helpful. Will it absolutely prevent the need for surgery? I think that really depends a lot on the person, as well as the quality of the practitioner that you're seeing. That's a combo that you have to, both people have to be in that mix. But it can, for some people, it seems to negate the need for surgery, and for other people, I think what it does is it helps them recover from surgery quicker, be ready for it, and to go forward without repeating the same kind of problems over and over again.
Thanks for that. That brings up another topic I did want to talk about, and that's how Feldenkrais is different to other practices in this global awareness of the body. Did you want to we touched on it there with answering that question.
Yeah, I always say that Feldenkrais is a really poor excuse for exercise. And sometimes people compare it to things that are more like exercise oriented. And if what you're wanting to do is build your cardiovascular health, if what you're wanting to do is build muscle strength, you're not going to do that through the Feldenkrais method. That you really have to know what is its place. And its place is more foundational. It's the underpinning for doing just about anything you want to do. But if you want to be stronger and you want to start lifting weights, then your ability to find the ground when lifting becomes extraordinarily important. The ability for you to feel and sense what's happening in your low back, in your diaphragm, in your pelvic floor, in your neck, right? In your neck, like, are you able to lengthen, and are you able to stack through the spine, or do you have a place in the spine that collapses or recruits inappropriately when you're lifting weights? And the same thing is true for runners, or any form of aerobic exercise that you might be seeking out. That I think Feldenkrais forms a really important underlying base around knowing how to sense yourself, so that it's not just not only awareness, which is big, but awareness of what, and how much more differentiation can I feel in myself, and as well as having the tools to experiment. So this is really, really big, so that as you experiment as you lift, you don't just lift in your 10 mindless repetitions, but you are aware, and then you can make tiny little adjustments in how you are doing those leg presses or free weights or running, that can make all the difference for people.
And Caroline is off to the gym now, and forms her movement. Fantastic. So that's going to touch more on the next question, which is what is the major tool we have at our disposal to then age gracefully?
It's our curiosity, for sure. When Dr. Feldenkrais asked his students what was the most important human skill that you need to have in order to survive, it was curiosity. And I think curiosity is the basis of resiliency. If you are not curious, if there's not a suppleness in your thinking, in my thinking, then I have much fewer options. And I do think that, I don't know whether I would have aged without Feldenkrais this way or not, but in my perception, I feel like I have gradually been able to become more supple in my thinking, that I see more possibilities instead of so many black and white things that I saw before Feldenkrais. Now, you know, I was in my mid-30s when I started Feldenkrais, so maybe I would have done that anyway. I'm like a case study of one on that. But it feels to me like, given my family background and history, that that Feldenkrais made a really big difference for me in that. So that suppleness of thinking, that suppleness of possibility, it's got to be right up there. And so when we think about the Feldenkrais work, we think about the movement, right?
Yeah.
But the way in which you guide someone through the movement, Angela, is in fact like one big long lesson in curiosity.
Absolutely.
That's really what it is more than anything else. And so as we become less and less outcome oriented and can hang out in the world of curiosity, which I would say is the world of possibility, then we have a lot more options.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see here, what is it that Brent is asking?
Okay, yeah, I was going to bring that up next.
Yeah.
While there are no magic bullets, how long would an average person, middle-aged, start to see real-life changing benefits once practicing both mental and physical? Great question, Brett.
Yeah. So I would say this is pretty dependent on the individual. I have seen people that, let's say it's classes. I've seen people come to classes that after one class start reporting immediate life-changing benefits. Now, we could ask ourselves if that is their habit, that no matter what they do, they immediately start noticing real life-changing benefits. Because some people, that is their habit. And some people, it's their habit never to notice any life-changing benefits. So there is that possibility. But then I think there's also people who actually really just get something so significant and different for themselves in a lesson that they start noticing it right away. And then I have people, I have one who has done testimonials for me, so I feel confident saying his name because he speaks frequently about it for groups, and I've recorded him, and his name is David. And David said, you know, I came with friends and I came to the first series, and so my first series was probably like 6 weeks long. He said, I don't know, didn't get it, didn't get it, but I was there with my friends. Then I came to a series without my friends. He said, I don't know, I didn't really get it. Then he said, I took a couple months off and then I came back and I got it. Like with a big G, got it, and felt this remarkable amount of change. Now, I find it curious that he came back. So it tells me that he felt maybe some kind of something, like maybe there's something in there for me, because most of us want to try 6, then another 6, then take off, then come back. So I think there was some deep movement in him that gave him a sense of this was going in the right direction. So I think
I did find it interesting that he came back, because most people would just be like, that was, something I did.
Right, exactly. So I think it's a really big kudos to him for hanging in there with it a little bit longer. So I think it does depend a bit, Brett. And I think also it depends on whether you're able to allow that the changes physically and mentally might not look like exactly what you were going for. So when we come in, we often have like a really set agenda that we're looking for. I want my foot pain gone. Totally fine that that's what you want. Of course we don't want pain. That's fine. Or we might be saying, I want my depression gone. That's also fine. I mean, who can fault either one of those desires? But what the journey to those things might look like is improvements in other areas first. And sometimes people don't count improvements that don't fit what their original goal was. So I'm often asking, and we often do this, of course, in Feldenkrais lessons as well, but particularly in my private work, I'm asking, what else do you notice? Okay, so the foot pain is still there. What else do you notice? What else have you noticed that seems different? And then people start to go, well, I noticed that I walked a little bit more this last week. Foot pain, but still walked more. Interesting, right? So we start to help them notice that there is a pathway of growth that's starting to happen, even though it might not be what they're looking for at the end result.
And again, staying in that curiosity mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he's sharing. He's a member of my Movement Online Academy community and has shared about his the major role Feldenkrais has played in his brain tumour surgery. He's been working with Nancy Haller, and he's found improvements over 2 to 3 weeks of sessions. So really story Craig has.
That's the greatest possible answer right there. Comes from somebody from right within it. I noticed for myself, Brett, I didn't really care for the classes in the beginning, but I did notice that I always felt like I moved just a little bit easier at the end of each lesson. I found them, couldn't make sense out of it, and that annoyed me. I thought it seemed like too slow and a waste of my time. But as I would go on between lessons and weeks, I would notice that I was walking down the hall. I was a manager at the time. I'd be walking down the hall and I would just realize I had moments where I thought, wow, this really feels fantastic. Like, how does anybody feel that good? And then I kept going back because of that, even though I didn't really enjoy the classes in the beginning. And then it took me a while to fall in love with the classes, but it didn't take me that long to fall in love with the changes.
I'll say something to that. It is a very similar experience, Cynthia, even though I came from a dance background. Going slow was so foreign to me. And I was like, what is this about? How is this going to help me at all? I was used to the big movements. But improving a particular move that I wanted to improve on helped me realize the magnitude and beauty of this work.
And that was some kind of a head spin, was it?
It's called the Windmill Move. And so that's where you're rolling around on your shoulders, your legs are flying in the air. It's one of the extreme moves. It actually comes from when the Olympics came to America and the break dancers, the break b-boys and b-girls, watched the men on the horse, and they were spinning around on the horse. They're like, oh, how can we do that on the floor? And so that's when all of these extreme floor moves came into the break dancing. So I was practicing that, and that helped. The other thing that helped me get curious is that my teacher moved so beautifully, my Feldenkrais teacher. He wasn't a dancer, he wasn't a martial artist, he was none of those things, wasn't a yoga teacher, but he moved so much more beautifully than any of my movement teachers before. So that's what got me curious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I have to say, one of the people that has been my model for aging gracefully, if we're going to use that term, was Ruthie Alon, who just passed away at the age of 90. And she just was moving beautifully in her 60s, and then really hit her stride in developing her own work in her 70s, really in her 70s, and then it's still into her mid 80s, really not maybe 3 years before her death. As far as I knew, she might have still been talking about that a week before her death, for all I know, but at least only 3 years before her death, she was still talking about the forward motion of herself in the work and what else she wanted to do. That's like, to me, like listening to Dr. Fauci, right? Dr. Fauci is 80 and they just turned it, they're just coined a term with his name. And I love that, Fauci has been coined to talk about people who date but don't take appropriate social distancing. But I love that people are inspired by this 80-year-old who just looks so vibrant, when he's breathing, right? And so sharp, so on it.
Yeah, and if you don't know Ruthie Alon, go have a look at some of her videos. It will inspire you to try this workout. All of my students love her. So what question are we up to now? Are there principles that we can use in our life to access our learning body?
Yeah. So I call one of my programs Your Learning Body, and I mean that to include the entire human being, because we do learn through movement and sensation and curiosity. And there are 7 principles, I think, that we need in order to activate the learning body. And one of them is one that you mentioned already, Angela, and that is slowing down and taking time. So when we slow down and we take time, we're not only starting to calm the nervous system, which a huge number of people in our culture have over-ramped nervous systems. That comes from trauma. It comes from too much focused attention, screen time, a constant doing, like we have in our culture. And so we need options for calming our nervous system, because without that, you're always in a kind of a bit of a fight, flight, or freeze or fawn type state. So one of the things that slowing down and taking time does is begins to break almost what I would call the chemical addiction cycle of being in that state. It's a very addictive state to be in, even though most people say they don't enjoy it. They also don't enjoy coming out of it. So it can be important to have something like the Feldenkrais work to slow us down, take time. And then what makes it also helpful, if we just do a couple of those principles, is that then if you're doing exploring through unique novel movements, in place of the sort of habitual driving forward or focusing or being not in our body and thinking about the past or how awful the future could be, we replace it with these unique novel movements that start to really captivate our attention. And we're like, what do they mean by that? And how would I do that? And that doesn't seem possible. What? I never knew that my foot was connected to my shoulder. Are they sure that my eyes would do anything? And so there's this curiosity being awakened. It starts to kind of vie for as much territory in the nervous system as this old sort of I'm scared, or I gotta do, or I can't let go of that game thing because I need to see who I'm gonna beat next. It starts to sort of vie for that and say, hey, there's something else in life that could be kind of nice. So that's another area of these 7 principles that the Feldenkrais work does an extremely good job at. And then a third one, if we were and we'll just do just 3 of these for, today, but the third one that I think is respecting yourself.
I love this one.
Yeah. I mean, I think respecting yourself. So you get to know yourself and you get to respect yourself. So we don't assume, I don't assume that everybody in my classes can do all the exact same things. They can't, at least not today. I mean, we have real structural differences between us. We also have real thinking, self-image differences between us. So as our self-image changes, as we get to know ourselves better, there may be a lot more range of possibilities in movement, but it's not going to look the same from person to person. What is an elegant movement for one person will translate as an elegant movement for somebody else quite differently. And so there's a respecting ourselves that happens in the Feldenkrais work that doesn't happen in very many other approaches. So we're continually re-invited to work within our easy, comfortable range to discover what it means to have a movement that's smoother and easier instead of maybe hard and fast or jerky or limited or tight, but we push against it anyway. So yeah, I think the Feldenkrais work has, huge benefits. And when we understand, excuse me, when we understand these underlying principles, then we can start to apply them into other places in our lives. So I think it's important to pull them out.
Yeah. So Alicia will address your question. She's asking, where do I find a therapist or classes? She's trying to avoid online, face-to-face. Well, we all prefer face-to-face, even as practitioners. Well, most countries have a Feldenkrais guild. You can go to their website and find a practitioner near you. And she said, where could she at least get started? YouTube, there's lots. I know Cynthia has videos on YouTube. Another speaker I'm having on has got an awesome YouTube channel, Taro. I'll have him on soon.
And both Angela and I have membership programs, so those are ways. But if you want face-to-face, although I have to say that, I mean, maybe in Australia you're doing a lot of face-to-face. I'm personally not seeing people face-to-face at this point. So
yeah, Australia, we're lucky
with COVID.
Yeah, we've been lucky we can do face-to-face, but all my classes are still online as well, my membership.
And I mean, I'm getting remarkable results. I'm sure you are too, Angela. So I have to say that I have been extraordinarily pleased with the results. And I also think, because I've seen some of your testimonials, so I know you are as well. And I also think somebody above said something about the community aspect could be important. And it is. Community support in classes would be a big benefit. And that's something that, I know I really try to encourage with small breakout groups at the ends of lessons for people to chat with each other in a more potent way. I take a lot of questions and answers, and then Facebook support groups or things like that. I think you have a support group inside your membership, Angela.
Yeah, well, mine is a scrolling one. That is my membership there that you can come and join. And the reason I moved this particular platform is because it has a forum. It's built on a Mighty Network platform, Movement Online Academy. Cynthia's going to come and have a fireside chat in a couple of days, so an informal chat where you can speak directly to both of us and other members in the community. I'm sure Craig will be there. He hasn't missed a fireside chat. So come along, and while I'm showing mine, I'll bring up Cynthia's, where you can find Cynthia.
Yeah, so my membership only opens once a year because I walk people through in a very intense kind of way, and it'll be opening up towards the end of May, beginning of June.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's Cynthia's website to go. Yep, Craig's there. Jill to teach. Thanks for watching, Jill. Is there another question here? There is another question that I had that came up when I was doing a bit of research, and it touches on this idea of your talking about self-respect. What is self-reliance? Because I believe that comes up a lot in Feldenkrais. Make a distinction about that.
Yeah, so, I think it's a major aspect of the Feldenkrais work is that we become self-authorizing, self-reliant. I'm not going to so much say self-reliant. I'm going to say self-authorizing. And we are meant to be in community. We are meant to be social beings, animals. So the idea of self-reliance, as in living necessarily like saying living off the grid, I don't know that that's what we were meant to be, but it's actually, great if you can do it, because that means no matter what happens in the world, you can survive on your own. So you can look at it in that direction. But I do think that the healthy individual is in community with other people by and large. So it's a kind of quality to living which lets you know that you're in charge of your own life. What does that mean? Well, it certainly doesn't mean that you might not have a relationship with a higher power or your country or whatever you want to use as a guide for your moral compass, but it does mean you're in charge of the decisions that you make about your own life. And that moment to moment, you have choices. And so we've probably been at stages in our lives where we're like constantly asking someone else, do you think I should do this? Should I do that? I don't know. Do you think I should do this? I'm not sure I should do this. Let me call somebody else and see if I think I should do this. Hey, teacher, do you think I can stand now on my foot and walk down the street and go running? Do you think I can do that now? And we're going to be, as Feldenkrais people, kind of, well, let's ask some questions. And it's not the answers you give to the teacher, it's the answers you give to yourself. So that if you can learn to ask yourself better questions, then you'll come up with better answers that are internally authorized, your own agency, as Allison says, and you'll be able to feel more confident in your decision making about your body, about your movement, about your relationships, about whatever, really. I think the questioning process we use in Feldenkrais, if you allow it, can be used anywhere in your life. So the process of the way we teach lessons and the questions that we ask, you can pretty much apply anywhere if you want to, and get a huge range of options.
Yeah, so true. And I just want one of the notes I have here, because I looked into, the top 5 reasons, top 5 regrets of the dying. The first one is, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And I thought that would tie in self-agency, respect for yourself, and yeah. So
I see what Cheryl said over here is so big. She said there's a fear of losing, often there's a fear of losing self-authorized in that older age when we're not capable of making our own decisions. And that's a real thing, Cheryl. So that's a real thing. And we don't want to like make that up. It's not a real thing. I have a wonderful client who's in her 90s. She's 97 this year. She'll be 98 in May. And she, I started seeing her about 15 years ago, and what a powerhouse of a woman. And she bossed me around. She'd come in and she'd say, what are you going to show me today? Okay, let's do something else. I want to be shown something else. I mean, she was a go-getter of a woman. And just really, had been voted as Cincinnati Woman of the Year at one time. And she knew how to do fundraising. She knew how to run things. And she knew how to run her own life. And so the last few years, life has been dramatically different for her. And she says now how her life is as I have to understand all these people who are taking care of me. I have to understand their individual personalities, and I have to adapt to their personalities. They aren't adapting to me anymore. I adapt to them. So it's a different kind of growth there, Cheryl, that she's experiencing. And I think that she's being highly resilient within that challenge at this particular stage in her life, where she's not allowed to make as many decisions as she would like to make for herself. So
interesting. So we'll wrap it up. Is there any last questions? If you want to come join Cynthia and myself, I've taken the scrolling bar off now. Online Academy, we're going to have an informal fireside chat, although probably no fire. So what you're
I mean, I can make fake flames and hold them up periodically.
Yes. And I do hope that this has, brought some curiosity around trying Feldenkrais if you haven't already. And I know many of the people here have. So
Can I read a Feldenkrais quote?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Someone else posted this earlier. I don't know actually which book this came from of his, but I think it's so good. So this is from Moshe Feldenkrais. My purpose is to allow people to move closer to actually being creatures of free choice, to genuinely reflect individual creativity and emotion, freeing the body of habitual tensions and wired patterns of behavior so that it may respond without inhibition to do what the person wants.
Love that.
Creatures of free choice.
Creatures of free choice. Yes, I love that. Madeline, thank you. She's saying thank you. Very interesting and well presented. We have Kate. Want to learn more and see how to apply Feldenkrais? Oh, where to learn more? As I said, both Cynthia and I both have a YouTube channel. We both have online membership classes. If you want to participate in your area, go to the Guild website. There may be someone close to you. Cheryl, thank you. Craig, thank you for sharing today. It was a pleasure to have you on. Happy. Is there anything you want to share to finish this off?
Maria, hi. Good to have you. Well, thank you all. It was fun. It was fun, Angela. Even though I was like about the topic, I got into it. So thanks for the chance.
I am going to have you on again just before the summer. If you don't know, Cynthia Allen is the instigator, the driving force behind is it going to be called Move Better, Feel Better this year?
Yes.
Feldenkrais Summit. So I'm going to have her on again just before that. Maybe you can pick the topic this time, Cynthia.
That's fine, but fine. The summit's fine with me too. We can talk about the summit too.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Great things coming up.
The summit. You always put little, breadcrumbs out of what you're doing, but we don't usually know until the
There's got to be some surprise in life.
Yeah. So thanks so much for joining me. Hopefully I can see many more of you on our Fireside Chat, and go and do a Feldy class and report back to me. I'm always interested to hear how people first experience the work.
Good. So, thanks. Maybe I'll see you on Friday. I'll see you for sure, Angela, on Friday. Maybe I'll see some of the rest of you on Friday.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.